1995. You are barely 3 months old in your cradle while your mom makes blueberry pie in the kitchen. You can smile at people, make coos and gurgling noises, babble, and imitate some sounds you often hear. Suddenly, you hear an interesting sound, one you haven't heard before. A loud spark you unfortunately can't imitate, and then darkness covers everywhere. You begin a loud cry. The loud spark came from the control room downstairs, and just before your mother grabbed you, Mr. Aaron's $7.5 million house in Malibu, a city west of Los Angeles, California, was on fire. Thick smoke covers the whole house, and in minutes the house goes down to ashes. It doesn't stop there. The fire spreads to other houses despite the interventions of the locals and the firefighters. The fire doesn't show signs of stopping. Why and how does fire spread so fast? You see, fire is made up of heat, fuel, and oxygen. Heat is what makes things hot enough to catch fire. For example, if you rub two sticks together or use a match, the heat generated warms up the material, like wood or paper, until it starts burning. Once the fire starts, it keeps itself going by producing more heat. Without enough heat, nothing can burn, and any fire that starts will quickly go out. Now let's talk about fuel, a very important factor. Fuel is anything that can catch fire and burn, like wood, paper, gas, or oil. It's what the fire eats to stay alive and keep burning. If there's no fuel around, the fire has nothing to burn, so it will go out. Think of fuel like food for the fire. It can't survive without it. This is why the recent fire incident in Los Angeles spread so quickly. You see, most homes in the United States are built using wood because it is a common and affordable material. Wood is easy to work with, making it quicker and cheaper to construct houses compared to materials like brick or concrete. However, wood is also flammable, which means it can catch fire and burn easily, making homes vulnerable to fires, especially during wildfires or accidents. On January 7th, it was announced on the news that Los Angeles, which is no stranger to fire incidents, was caught up by a devastating wildfire, which was barely controlled until this day. The fire began in the Pacific Palisades area, a place with many homes and dry vegetation, a great source of fuel for fire. The fire consumed over 39,000 acres of land, which is roughly 2.5 times the size of Manhattan. This includes the destruction of around 10,000 structures, the displacement of nearly 200,000 residents, and over $150 billion in damages. As pictures and videos of the incident went around, one of them caught my attention. As you can see, this house is spared in the fire while other structures around it are burned to ashes. Why, if you look closely, you'll see that this house or structure was built with concrete. And concrete is a very good enemy of fire outbreaks. Concrete has an excellent heat resistance and does not burn. Its components, cement, sand, aggregate, are non-combustible, making it an effective barrier against fire. It also has a low thermal conductivity, which helps slow the spread of heat through a structure during a fire. If the houses in LA were built with concrete, the fire would be well controlled with less spread. Just like we depend on oxygen for our daily activities, fire also does. When something burns, a chemical reaction called combustion takes place. Combustion happens when a material, the fuel, reacts with oxygen in the air. This reaction releases heat, light, and gases, which are what we see as flames. Without enough oxygen, this reaction slows down, or stops completely, meaning the fire will go out. Oxygen supports combustion by reacting with the fuel. The more oxygen available, the more intense the fire becomes. For example, blowing air, which contains oxygen, onto a small fire can make it burn faster. When fire burns one material, it generates heat, which can ignite nearby materials if they are combustible. Oxygen helps these new materials catch fire and continue burning, allowing the fire to spread. In open spaces, wind or airflow can carry oxygen to a fire, making it burn more vigorously. This is why wildfires spread rapidly in windy conditions. Let's go back to the Los Angeles wildfire. The recent wildfires in Los Angeles have been made much worse by strong winds, especially the Santa Ana winds. These winds are very dry and can be quite strong. They start in desert areas far inland, where the air is already dry. Then they move through narrow mountain passes and blow toward the coastal regions, like Los Angeles. As the winds travel, they pick up speed and dry out plants and trees even more, making it easier for them to catch fire. Once a fire starts, the winds can quickly push the flames across large areas, spreading the fire faster than it could on its own. Strong winds cause a higher oxygen flow, which causes more fire. In closed areas like rooms, fire quickly uses up the available oxygen. However, as oxygen levels drop, the fire weakens but doesn't always stop. Sometimes, if a door or window suddenly opens, fresh oxygen rushes in, causing the fire to reignite and spread explosively. This is called a flashover. Extinguishers are usually used to put out fires because many of them work by using chemicals or gases, like carbon dioxide, to remove oxygen from the fire. When you use a fire extinguisher that sprays carbon dioxide, the gas comes out very cold and in a large amount. The CO2 spreads over the fire like a blanket. Since CO2 is heavier than air, it pushes the oxygen around the fire away. Like I said earlier, without enough oxygen, the fire cannot breathe, and it goes out. This method is very effective, especially for fires involving things like electrical equipment or flammable liquids, such as oil or gasoline, though they do not work well on fires involving paper and fabrics, because these materials can still burn even when the oxygen is reduced. For these types of fires, water, foam, or powder extinguishers are better. The Palisades fire has resulted in at least 20 fatalities, and over 1,400 firefighters have been deployed to combat the blaze, receiving support from the U.S. Department of Defense, the Royal Canadian Air Force, and special firefighters from Mexico and South Africa. As Mr. Aaron walked through the streets of Malibu, he was overwhelmed by emotions, reminded of a similar event that happened at his home 20 years ago.